The following chapters covered the introduction to the SAP company, milestones and the most popular applications for Enterprise Business Suite. Now I'm going to dive into each of those individually. SAP is a German multinational software corporation that makes enterprise software to manage business operations and customer relations. Headquartered in Walldorf, Germany, with regional offices around the world, more than 80% of Fortune 500 companies have successfully implemented SAP products. SAP was named the most valuable brand in Europe with a value of over 33 billion euros in 2015. Now for a brief history lesson. So SAP was founded in 1972, and in 1973 their first commercial product R1 was launched that offered a common system for multiple tasks with databases, allowing saving of data in a central system. Then in 1979, SAP brought R2 to the market, which was expanding the capabilities of material management and production planning. Moving on, SAP developed and released R3 in 1992, which was for better leveraging enterprise-wide information to coordinate all resources, information and activities needed to do business, such as order fulfillment, billing and HR management. Then in 2004, R/3 Enterprise was replaced by ERP Central Component, that's SAP ECC. The SAP Business Warehouse, SAP Strategic Enterprise Management and Internet Transaction Server were also merged into SAP ECC. In 2010, SAP AG announced the release of SAP HANA 1.0, an in-memory appliance for business intelligence, allowing real-time analytics. That's up to the present day. In 2015 then, SAP released S4HANA as its next generation business suite. The application is expanded with HANA in-memory hybrid database, a more simplified data model with no aggregates and no indices, and the user experience platform Fiori to develop user-friendly and secured corporate apps. When we talk about SAP, we're generally speaking about the main product, so that's SAP Business Suite. This is an enterprise platform that consists of a collection of different modules that have been provided by SAP. Business Suite is often broken into two main categories, ERP and Extended Operations. ERP Core deals with internal data across different departments like sales, production, procurement and financials. The ultimate goal for ERP is to manage internal enterprise data such as people, money and products in a central system. To extend your company's success by managing spend, optimizing resources and streamlining operations even better, we've got to extend the central system to connect to external data with complex calculations and analyses. So, other than ERP, there are 4 systems as extended operations. These are firstly Customer Relationship Management, or CRM, and this helps companies acquire and retain customers, gain marketing and customer insight. Then there's Product Lifecycle Management, or PLM, and this helps manufacturers with product-related information. Thirdly, Supply Chain Management, or SCM. This helps companies with the process of resourcing its manufacturing and service processes. And then finally, Supplier Relationship Management, or SRM. This enables companies to procure from suppliers. The SAP ERP provides large businesses with a single software system to support all major business functions, no matter the industry. SAP's ERP is a suite of integrated modules used to collect, transact and report on data from their business activities. It enables the flow of information between the different parts of a company and with outside stakeholders like customers and vendors. And one of the questions we get a lot from people who are at the very beginning of their SAP journey is, what is SAP HANA? Why is it important? I know you're talking about it all over the place, but you never tell us what it is. SAP HANA is an in-memory database. It stands for High Performance Analytical Appliance, in the idea behind that it's a database that is substantially faster than any traditional database that runs on the disk. But why does that matter? Well, it matters because you have all of these different pieces of the business solution that are now feeding data back and forth. You've got a database that's constantly getting data from all these different sources. You've got all the traditional business sources that you're bringing data in and out of. So that could be your contracts and sales, purchase orders, all of the transactional data. But you've also got UX and UI data. You've got information that's coming into and out of your website, into and out of your forms. And then you have the proliferation of mobile data. So that's data coming out of mobile devices, not just from your customers, but also from your workforce. As our workforce goes increasingly mobile, you've got more and more information that's coming from those data sources. And then you've got all of the machine learning solutions. So what good is data if you're not going to do interesting things with it? So you've got machine learning that's both reading from and writing to that HANA database. And then you've got the IoT sensors. We've got IoT sensors in everything now. So you might have IoT devices in your factory, in your warehouses, your points of presence and points of sales. IoT sensors are everywhere. And so you get this massive amount of data that's all coming in, and you need a database that's able to handle it. That's why HANA exists, because it's the core of your digital enterprise. It's the core database that everything feeds into. And why does that matter? So let's talk about S4HANA. S4HANA is the application suite that goes around it. So you've got fairly normal components that go into it. The first one's going to be your ERP, the traditional SAP product, the one that everybody knows about. But you've also got the CRM, SRM, SCM, and you've got cloud solutions like SuccessFactors and Ariba. These are all important components of S4HANA deployment. That's the piece that sits here right in the middle. That's the NetWeaver stack, which is an application platform you can deploy applications onto that can communicate back and forth with the database. And so not only do you have the data sources coming in and out, but now you've got all the applications that go along with it. So you've got applications that run on SAP NetWeaver platform directly. But also anyone can develop on top of that NetWeaver platform. So a third party, business partner, a consultant, anybody can develop an application that's specific to your needs. That goes along with the NetWeaver platform. And why does all of that matter? What good is data if you aren't going to do things with it? Otherwise it's just sitting out there. It's data in a warehouse. And that's where we start talking about the analytical pieces. Now I like to break up the analytical pieces into 3 levels. So your first level, that's going to be your tactical level. That's going to be your business intelligence platform. That's a central place where any employee who's got access to the system can go out and put together a query to get the data they need to do their job. The second piece is what I like to consider the enterprise level. That's going to be the machine learning or SAP Leonardo. That's where you're using artificial intelligence to go out and actually gain important insight into your data that you might otherwise never know about. Then that third piece is what I like to think of as the strategic level. That's going to be your digital boardroom. So that's your C-suite and your board of directors that want the top-down enterprise level view of what's going on in your system, what's going on in your factories, but they want to look at it at a strategic level. I want to see all of my factories, all of my warehouses at once. And then I want to be able to drill down. I see that we've got an uptime issue at this particular factory, or some sort of hang-up in this warehouse, or this piece of our inventory system, or this piece of our logistics trail. And they can take that and go from that very high level and then start drilling down into it piece by piece so that they can take the insight that they need to make those strategic level decisions. From the perspective of business cases, which approach that is appropriate for your organisation really is a very unique case-by-case situation where it's really looking at the degree of change and it's a risk management exercise. I won't go through every single option. I think these options are somewhat self-explanatory. In terms of what they are, you've got wide ranges from fresh implementation or re-implementation all the way to make a more step-by-step go into HANA and then eventually move to S4HANA. One lesson learned that I really want to very quickly share here is when you're constructing your business case, it's critical you start out with the right implementation approach that's suited for your organization, for your situation. What's maybe not so important at the early stage is figuring out every single step that's associated with it. At least I recently worked with a client who just could not help themselves in terms of getting into detail, and then it started going a little sideways in time. So try to cover off every technical question, every business question, and rather than focusing on the task at hand, which is to build a business case for people for all projects and launch the project successfully based on it. So to help you avoid getting into those traps, I've laid out a series of questions you may want to think through as you start to formulate your business case. It really starts with a business perspective. What are the reasons you're going? You want a next generation? What are the business drivers? Where are the benefits? Later on in this video, I'm going to take us a little bit into how we go about identifying the next set of questions. You know, what kind of risk, what level of change your organization is able to go through. There's always going to be competing priorities, and being able to balance that will be very important. And what's really very prevalent now is you're going to a cloud solution appropriate for you, or introducing a private cloud option as well as public options for S4HANA. So that's certainly a consideration most organizations will go through. So the next question, what's the level of remediation? This is especially important for organizations who have a highly customized ECC system and they don't want to see that investment going away. So we'll get like now as we go to the next one. So to understand what the level of remediation required to bring those older codes behind a compliant is something we need to very quickly get our arms around. The last question is addressing any kind of external event that may affect your overall roadmap and decision. If you're in an industry where you have to be in compliance of external regulations, those deadlines will certainly have an impact on how you plan out your project. And this may seem like the complication that most of us would actually, in reality, like to make the process easier. I think many of you have heard about the new privacy, so it certainly kind of boxes you in and forces you to do certain things within certain timeframes. There's no one right roadmap for everybody. Everyone is using SAP differently. Your organization is structured not all that similar to your competitors or others in the industry. It's really good we all spend some time to study the decisions that were made by those other companies that have already made them. But my caution here to all of you is don't spend too much time on it. Take the lessons learned and move forward and really focus on what your business and your organization needs are, how your SAP system is supporting your business and your strategy. Your company's strategy certainly will be somewhat unique and different from all your competitors. So, the decisions made by others are not necessarily going to resonate. Your organization, it's more than just your ERP system. And the implementation roadmap should reflect that you need to consider there are new skills you're going to be acquiring. What's the effect? How do you go about supporting the system? You have to consider how the new business processes or the new functionalities would affect the users, what kind of training may be required. So it really needs to be a fully comprehensive, well-rounded roadmap to address all of that. And lastly, just repeating what I've already said before regarding external compliance and regulation, that's something certainly you'll need to consider as you build up your map. I hope in these next few slides to share with you an approach to building a business case for S4HANA. So, I like this chart, first of all, just to help present the concept of the business case. So, what we have here is a time-based model, and you typically include a financial analyst on the team to help build this model out, most likely to be an Excel-based model. But if you think about it, if you have any capital investment, you have a series of inflows which are above the line, the central axis and central sciences, and you have a series of outflows. And then over time, we have the vertical bars representing the periods that would typically go over the years. And I'd say a 5-year model, normally a 10-year model is a huge investment, and S4HANA, longer is appropriate. If we take a look at the outflows first of all, period 0 is where we incur the bulk of those costs. So the largest box in the middle, that's the capital costs. And included in these costs would be our software licensing, perhaps system integration costs from the provider, like yourselves, for example. There may be customization costs involved. And if you're able to stick to the standard, then you'll have lower costs. But don't forget change management costs, stakeholder alignment, and so on. And there may be some backfill costs as well. Alongside the capital costs will be ongoing. So HANA costs, you'll be incurring software maintenance and perhaps some hosting costs, hardware maintenance, application support, and there may be a few others. So again, period 0 is where the capital costs go out. And there needs to be a team of people involved in pulling these costs together, because it will depend on the chart that we showed earlier, on the different options on the face. You may want to include in the model those different options. Now let's take a look at the business benefits, which are the categories of groupings for the inflows coming in. I think this is a reasonable grouping of inflows. In your case, it may be slightly different. But let's take a look at the benefits. The first area is the cost avoidance in legacy. It's capital costs. So if you do nothing and you just stay on the current platform, you would have to incur capital costs on your legacy IT systems. Now, to the extent those are materials largely unexpected, you may be able to find them in your 3 or 5 year strategic business plans. And you'd include that as cost avoidance because it helps compensate for the offset in the capital costs you'll be incurring. And the way I structured this chart, you can see that I start these benefits in period 1. And they start later as you start moving down the time horizon to think about in this chart that I kind of moved from a position of more certain benefits to less certain benefits as you move up the line. So the cost of going into the legacy, its capital cost, is certainly something you'll avoid. You'll also avoid some cost avoidance in an ongoing operating cost as well. Maintenance fees, for example, will go away. Perhaps some of the application support will go away. But they'll be offset by the HANA costs, which are below the line. So these first two bars represent cost avoidance. The next level of the next 4 areas are more around benefits, and I've grouped them in this way. So the first area I chose and grouped is process harmonization benefits. This transformation in S4HANA may enable you to run your business with best practices across the enterprise. So you may be able to use some shared services or shared service centers. So as a result of those processes, harmonization is doing things the same way throughout your enterprise. You may be able to realize some significant efficiencies. Now that may be in terms of the model that you don't hire into the future at the same rate that you've been hiring in the past as your business grows. So you're able to do 2 more with the same or less expense when you take advantage of some of the automation possibilities enabled by HANA. So I think it's essential to get your process owners and to look at those different areas in the enterprise so that HANA can help. So that's the process harmonization benefits. And then along with that, our new ERP capabilities. So HANA has many capabilities that may be relevant to your business. So that's the next level of benefit groupings I have. For example, new capabilities in asset management, faster, more effective MRP. Now we have embedded EIM. Again, essential to look at those and see if you're able to leverage and take advantage to help calculate some of the benefit. The grouping I have is working capital improvements. Now, I think the reality is that what the benefits to working capital really flow out from the 2 previous bars that I've mentioned. Because they tend to be more one-time benefits, I've treated them as a separate bar here. And I think the major areas would be in your trade receivables, in your payables, and in your inventory or your days stock on hand. So if as a result of S4HANA you're able to realise improvements in any of those key working capital areas, then you'd incorporate those into the model as one-time benefits. And then finally, S4HANA is clearly the basis of the new digital core. It's the foundation for the digital enterprise, serving as the basis for business innovation and simplification. If as a result of putting in S4HANA, you've planned or intended to take advantage of new capabilities such as blockchain or Internet of Things or robotic process automation, to rely on that, you may want to also include benefits associated with those process improvements and incorporate that into your business case. So, just to summarise on this slide then, this is an abstract model of a way of thinking about cost categories and benefit categories. And if I jump to the end of a business case, then I have a summary sheet. And a summary data visualization could look something like this. We've got the x-axis in the middle, a 0, and anything below the line shows money going out, and anything above the line shows money coming in. Even though the numbers don't look anything like that, these are real categories you need to think through and think about. Let's just take a look, spend a few minutes on this slide. On the previous slide, I started with the cash outflow, so you can see these blue boxes here represent the capital columns going out, 18 million and 10 million. And again, completely made up numbers. And then the ongoing costs for supporting the HANA platform, you see them going out 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so those are the project outflows. In my example here, the project inflows, we have these grey bar areas, which are working capital improvements. So in this particular business case, working capitals, helping to work capital improvements are helping to justify the investment. And then in the yellow area, we have some improvements through incremental margin, through incremental sales. Maybe the digital core has led the way for some omni-channel sales that weren't the ones that were available prior to S4HANA. This is quite a useful way of representing the project cash outflows and inflows over time. And then overlaid onto that, I like to show the actual net cash flow, which is this blue line here. The first point is that negative 18 million, and the next point in year 1 is about negative 2 million, which is the sum of the outflows and inflows. And we can plot that over time, so your executive sponsors can see what's happening to cash in the enterprise. The other thing we could have done was to plot this on a cumulative basis as well, just by adding these points together and showing a different rendering. But I felt it just made the charts too busy. It'll give you a clear visual view when you actually break even, which in this case, in my example, is 3.5 years. I also like to present the profit and loss view. Cash flow is one thing, profit is another, and the red line represents the impact on the profit and loss account, or the net income after tax. And we can see that's negative in the first couple of periods and then starts moving positive. And without getting too financial, why is it so low? That's because we have to depreciate the value of the capital investment as an expense against the income from year 1 onwards when we go live. And if your CFO doesn't like to look at this, then that may lead to some more discussions early on about how you can change the project or think through bringing some of these benefits possibly earlier. And then finally, there are classic project metrics that we use to evaluate your project. One is net present value, and net present value is nothing more than the addition of each of these cash flow positions each year. But we actually discount them by what's called the weighted average cost of capital, which I won't say the details, but it just says money now is more important than money later. We discount future cash flows, add them up, and anything above 0 is good. The bigger the number, the better. If you can generate a positive NPV in 5 years, then that's a good thing. This is probably likely to be multi-year, so 10 years is also appropriate as well. The internal rate of return is a project measure. In my case, it's 16.5%. So if the enterprise is expected to earn 10% on its investments, we're returning 16.5%. In other words, anything above the enterprise's weighted average cost of capital is a good thing. And then payback is looking at these and discounted flows and determining what it pays back earlier is better. Now, I'd point out that what we're doing with any business case is we're making a lot of assumptions, carrying into the future, and figuring out whether or not this investment is going to generate a decent return or not. And so you may want to also form what we call sensitivity analysis. What if capital is 5 million more than we expect? What if the benefits, the working capital benefits, don't come in as expected? What if our growth rates that may be assumed are half of what we expect? So you test it under different conditions to identify the range of returns. Those two slides are a way of thinking about the categories of costs that you need to include and a visualization. Now let's take a look at some of the benefit areas. So this slide, I think as long as no doubt you'll know every client, every business is different. And so how do you go about finding those benefit areas that are most appropriate to your business? Well, the model we like to use is to take a look at your existing pain points. So if you think of your legacy environment and you think of the way your business runs and you look at those key areas where you have existing issues that currently affect performance and result in efficiencies, where you're doing more work than you want to or need to in order to achieve your business results. So you look at the pain point analysis. The next level to think about then is the enablers in HANA that exist so that we can address those pain points. Now, it may be a change in processes or changing the HANA technology that really can address these pain points. And then finally, you think about the future state. And this is where it's so important to have executive alignment and the global process owners or the process owners engaged and involved thinking about how the future state should look if we address those pain points. And then from that, you can generate a grouping and a listing of benefits that we can start to think about how to quantify. This is just a short rendering of some of the benefits we've seen from existing projects for S4HANA. For example, we've seen it as a 10% improvement in sales order accuracy, which is a great thing, but what does that mean in terms of bringing numbers and metrics into a business case? Well, an improvement in sales order accuracy would be an improvement in customer satisfaction, which likely leads to an improvement in customer retention, or may include or result in an improvement in volume of orders, and an avoidance of lost sales. If you feel and believe that there are some genuine margin and sales volume benefits associated with an improvement in sales order accuracy or improved customer retention, then you can model that and you can incorporate it into your benefits case. We know that S4HANA has done some fantastically powerful stuff with memory computing and has a wonderful ability to produce reporting in real time, freeing up analytical time to start, thinking through what the benefits of that are. Perhaps your monthly close process has improved. Perhaps you don't need now so many people doing different reconciliations because you're able to take advantage of soft closes throughout the period. So what does that mean in terms of your future hiring? Do you need to take on as many staff as you need to? And if not, then can you incorporate those as benefits? This one next to a 15% cost saving achieved due to cost-efficient and resilient cloud solutions. That's money you can take to the bank and incorporate into the business model. Another one here, 99% quicker payment processing, ensuring that suppliers are paid on a timely basis. With SAP and putting in the right rules, you can ensure you're paying people according to terms. And I'm certainly not advocating that you push payment out, but in one client that I work with, they were paying people earlier than they needed to and not taking advantage of cash discounts. There was nothing preventing them from doing it. So part of the value realization was to make sure that they were paying according to the terms they wanted to pay to. So that's an example of some of the S4 business cases. Now, in the next section, we'll talk about next generation user experience with SAP Fiori. So stay tuned.